The obstacle the way. Part 2 Action. Get moving. We must all either wear out or rust out, every one of us. My choice is to wear out. Theodore Roosevelt. Amelia Earhart wanted to be a great aviator. But it was the 1920s, and people still thought that women were frail and weak and didn't have the stuff. Woman's suffrage was not even a decade old. She couldn't make her living as a pilot, so she took a job as a social worker. Then one day the phone rang. The man on the line had a pretty offensive proposition, along the lines of, "We have someone willing to fund the first female transatlantic flight. Our first choice has already backed out. You won't get to actually fly the plane, and we're going to send 2 men along as chaperones, and guess what? We'll pay them a lot of money and you won't get anything. Oh, and you very well might die while doing it." You know what she said to that offer? She said yes. Because that's what people who defy the odds do. That's how people who become great at things, whether it's flying or blowing through gender stereotypes, do. They start. Anywhere. Anyhow. They don't care if the conditions are perfect or if they're being slighted. Because they know that once they get started, if they can just get some momentum, they can make it work. As it went for Amelia Earhart. Less than 5 years later she was the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic and became, rightly, one of the most famous and respected people in the world. But none of that would have happened had she turned up her nose at that offensive offer or sat around feeling sorry for herself. None of it could have happened if she'd stopped after that first accomplishment either. What mattered was that she took the opening and then pressed ahead. That was the reason for her success. Life can be frustrating. Oftentimes we know what our problems are. We may even know what to do about them. But we fear that taking action is too risky, that we don't have the experience, or that it's not how we pictured it, or because it's too expensive. Because it's too soon, because we think something better might come along, because it might not work. And you know what happens as a result? Nothing. We do nothing. Tell yourself, the time for that has passed. The wind is rising. The bell's been rung. Get started, get moving. We often assume that the world moves at our leisure. We delay when we should initiate. We jog when we should be running, or, better yet, sprinting. And then we're shocked, when nothing big ever happens, when opportunities never show up, when new obstacles begin to pile up, where the enemies finally get their act together. Of course they did, we gave them room to breathe. We gave them the chance. So the first step is, take the bat off your shoulder and give it a swing. You've got to start, to go anywhere. Now let's say you've already done that. Fantastic. You're already ahead of most people. But let's ask an honest question, could you be doing more? You probably could, there's always more. At minimum, you could be trying harder. You might have gotten started, but your full effort isn't in it, and that shows. Is that going to affect your results? No question. In the first years of World War II, there was no worse assignment for British troops than being sent to the North African front. Methodical and orderly, the British hated the grueling weather and terrain that wreaked havoc on their machines and their plans. They acted how they felt, slow, timid, cautious. German Field Marshal General Erwin Rommel, on the other hand, loved it. He saw war as a game. A dangerous, reckless, untidy, fast-paced game. And, most important, he took to this game with incredible energy and was perennially pushing his troops forward. The German troops had a saying about him, "Where Rommel is, there is the front." That's the next step, ramming your feet into the stirrups and really going for it. That's definitely not what they say about most leaders today. While overpaid CEOs take long vacations and hide behind email autoresponders, some programmer is working 18-hour days coding the startup that will destroy that CEO's business. And if we were honest, we're probably closer to the former than the latter when it comes to the problems we face, or don't face. While you're sleeping, traveling, attending meetings, or messing around online, the same thing is happening to you. You're going soft. You're not aggressive enough. You're not pressing ahead. You've got a million reasons why you can't move at a faster pace. This all makes the obstacles in your life loom very large. For some reason, these days we tend to downplay the importance of aggression, of taking risks, of barreling forward. It's probably because it's been negatively associated with certain notions of violence or masculinity. But of course Earhart shows that that isn't true. In fact, on the side of her plane she painted the words, "Always think with your stick forward." That is, you can't ever let up your flying speed. If you do, you crash. Be deliberate, of course, but you always need to be moving forward. And that's the final part, stay moving, always. Like Earhart, Rommel knew from history that those who attack problems and life with the most initiative and energy usually win. He was always pushing ahead, keeping the stampede on the more cautious British forces to devastating effect. His string of offensives at Cyrenaica, Tobruk, and Tunisia led to some of the most astonishing victories in the history of warfare. He got started early, while the British were still trying to get comfortable. And as a result, Rommel was able to seize what appeared to be an unstoppable advantage in some of the most uninhabitable terrain on the planet. He blew right through the bleak battlefields of North Africa, with its enormous distances, blinding sandstorms, scorching heat, and lack of water, because he never, ever stopped moving. It surprised even his commanding officers, who time and time again attempted to slow Rommel down. They preferred deliberation and discourse to advancement. It had a devastating effect on the momentum that Rommel had built with his troops, just as it does in our own lives. So when you're frustrated in pursuit of your own goals, don't sit there and complain that you don't have what you want or that this obstacle won't budge. If you haven't even tried yet, then of course you will still be in the exact same place. You haven't actually pursued anything. We talk a lot about courage as a society, but we forget that at its most basic level it's really just taking action. Whether that's approaching someone you're intimidated by or deciding to finally crack a book on a subject you need to learn. Just as Earhart did, all the greats you admire started by saying, "Yes, let's go." And they usually did it in less desirable circumstances than we'll ever suffer. Just because the conditions aren't exactly to your liking, or you don't feel ready yet, doesn't mean you get a pass. If you want momentum, you'll have to create it yourself, right now, by getting up and getting started.